Hello, Mark from Enchantment of Eternity here, and I just got back from seeing Star Wars Rogue One. So it is 3:30 in the morning on, well, I guess it's Thursday technically. I just got back from the midnight showing of Rogue One, so I wanted to share a few thoughts. So this video will be spoiler-free, the best I can do spoiler-free. So if you're really hypersensitive about spoilers, then you might not want to watch this video, but I'll do the best I can to keep it free of spoilers. There isn't going to be anything in here that ruins the movie for you, but if you're again, if you're hypersensitive, you don't want to know anything about it, then you might want to wait till you see the movie. But I know a lot of people, So I just wanted to share a few thoughts. So I wanted to do like a full-on, proper review, but I'm too busy with too many other videos I want to do this week. Maybe if I find some time the next couple of weeks, I might do a proper video that's spoilers. So that's for like a spoiler review. If I have time, I can't promise I'll get around to it, but I'll try to in the next couple of weeks. But I wanted to share some of my quick thoughts on the film. Yes, hello to Jerome in the chat. It's going pretty good. And was it Campster? Is it Campster SP guy? Yeah, I did indeed enjoy the movie. I had a blast. So the first thing I want to talk about with these Star Wars movies is I've heard a lot of different views about the spin-offs, because Rogue One is the first Star Wars movie we get that's not part of the, it's not part of the overall arching, main saga, if you say. It's not episode whatever. It's not an episode. It's just outside of that, and it's just a side thing. And this is something we're going to get apparently every other year. I don't know what's going to happen once episode 9 finishes. They haven't announced that yet. They don't know if we'll get more of these spinoffs every year, or if they're going to do another trilogy. We don't know. But I just want to give my 2 cents, because I heard a lot of people who are very heavily against this, and they say it's like, just the big studios, Disney, trying to rake more money out of people. And perhaps, that obviously is the case, but so what? I personally think I'm excited about it. I think it's a great thing. I think it's a very good thing. This is something actually George Lucas wanted to do for a while, as expand the universe. Like, his idea was to make it a TV show and have a whole bunch of TV shows going at the same time, because I think he was thinking more of Star Trek, because he was thinking how the difference, which is always the Star Wars versus Star Trek thing. And the thing that always comes up is there's more Star Trek around. That's the better argument that any Trekkies would have against Star Wars fans. So Lucas, I think, wants to expand the Star Wars universe as much. And there's all this, there's a lot of extended material, and there was a lot before that now officially is not canon once Disney bought the rights for Star Wars, which is a shame. But they're releasing more material that is canon, a few books, comic books, and like the cartoons. So there is like an expanded universe, but they want to make it like, so instead of doing the Star Trek novel, which was, back in the 90s, they're doing the Marvel Cinematic Universe model, which is more relevant to modern times, and having a whole bunch of movies to create a cinematic universe. And I love it. I think it's a great idea. I'm really glad they're doing it. I think people who poo-poo on it and say, oh, it's too much Star Wars. You can't have too much Star Wars. I think expanding the universe and getting more information, learning more about it, and expanding it and making it more like Star Trek, where you know more about it, and it's its own tangible thing with a history, a lore, a background. Not even Star Trek. You could say it's like Game of Thrones with a lot of established history and lore that comes with it, and that's only a good thing. So a few more people in the chat. Niels, Cardinal Doomsday, I didn't think you'd be awake. How's it going? Yeah. And Yeah, Campster says that they pull it off well on game. Yeah, absolutely. And Jerome says, I'm excited for Rogue One because it's original characters and story, but I don't want the Han Solo movie. That is a good point. I was just about to mention the Han Solo movie. I think they could go in different ways in doing a young Han Solo movie because that feels more like a prequel. But, you know, hopefully they'll do more in the future. Like I heard originally, like I heard something about a Boba Fett movie a while ago, but apparently that's not on the table at the moment. But that would be cool, I think. Anyway, I do hope they expand the universe more than just the characters we are familiar with, but they're gonna start with those to begin with, and that's the thing with Rogue One. Getting into Rogue One is that when I first heard the premise of this movie, I wasn't enthralled. I wasn't thrilled. I was just like, because the premise is that it's in New Hope, they had these plans for the Death Star that allow them to destroy it. So the premise of this is the story behind the group of people who went and got those plans. And yeah, so I was because that premise sounds like it's too heavily dependent on A New Hope, and it doesn't stand on its own 2 feet enough. But when I saw the trailers, I was like, wow, actually this looks great. This looks like it will stand on its own feet. And to be honest, like if you asked me, did it stand on its own feet? I would say yes and no, because I think, in my opinion, it was a bit too heavily dependent on Star Wars: New Hope. I would have liked a more original idea that wasn't so integral to like minor plot points. But it was all original characters, and some really good characters as well. So it wasn't too heavily dependent. It was more of the plot, the premise about the Death Star plans. That was. I think they could have went another way that was a bit more independent and not so like interwoven into it. But anyway, I'll get more about that later. So I also wanted to talk a bit about where I saw it. I went into this like the biggest theater in Wellington. It was like, used to be an old-fashioned theater. It's been around for a long time, so it's huge. One cinema. Like it's not like a multiplex; it's just one gigantic cinema. So it was like it was a celebration going to the midnight showing they had. I wish my phone died, so I couldn't take pictures because I wanted to take pictures with some stormtroopers because it was all this cosplay, really great cosplay. There was a band playing jazz music. They were playing like Star Wars music, like the Cantina theme. It was like a huge Star Wars celebration, like an hour before the movie started, and it was just packed with people. It was a spectacle on its own. So seeing it, that's why I always go to that theater, even though it's like 10-15 minute drive from my house, when there's actually one that's like 2-minute drive. But that's not the huge thing. It was like an event, and that was fun. So I like going there just for that. And it seems like it's going to be a yearly thing because it did it last year for Force Awakens. And I guess we'll do it next year for episode 8. So I'll make sure to bring my camera with me next time to get some pictures of stormtroopers. So what does Jerome say? Josh Trank, before he left the project, was apparently going to reveal his spinoff movie, which was to be a Boba Fett spinoff, but since all the shit was him on the Fantastic Four, said came Disney. Oh yeah, that's what Jerome says. Yeah, I didn't know that Josh was planning a Boba Fett. I guess that was never official. But I don't know. Personally, I don't blame Josh Trank for Fantastic Four. I mean, obviously he does have some part to blame, but I think it's more Fox that fucked it up because they have a history of interfering with films and fucking them up. And I don't know. I think had they not interfered, Fantastic Four still wouldn't have been a great movie, but it wouldn't have sucked as much as it did, from what I hear. But maybe I'm wrong. That's because I haven't seen Josh Trank's vision, but he tweeted saying that he actually had a good movie, and I believe him. I mean, maybe it wasn't that great. Maybe I would have thought it's okay, but I don't. Yeah, you can tell that the studio interfered with that one. So I don't actually think they should have kicked them off of Star Wars. But see, that's the thing. They get these indie directors who just do these small films, so that they can push them around. Basically, so the studio can just bully them, and that's sort of a shame. Like they had the guy who did Rogue One, was the guy who did Godzilla, and I guess that segues into the next thing I wanted to talk about, is because when I was watching, I watched a few reviews before I saw this movie, and there's one review. Chris Tuckman, I'm sure you watch this channel. It's a good channel. And it's one of my favorite reviewers. I agree with him so much. Anyway, he said that he was disappointed because Darth Vader wasn't in the movie that much. And he was going on about it. I was like, how could you not put Darth Vader in the movie? But I knew, like, it's no shame. Even when he said this, I'm like, duh, of course. Like, I never expected anything more than a cameo from Darth Vader. I knew this wasn't his movie. This movie was not about him. It just happened to take place in the same sort of period where he's around, so they can have this, cool little cameo. Oh, look, that's Darth Vader. But he's not the purpose. He's not the main villain. He's not the thing about this movie. So I'm happy with what we got. I think we got more, or maybe just the right amount of Darth Vader that I was expecting. I wasn't expecting more, and I think if you are expecting more, then you have false expectations. Change your expectations. He's not the main thing of this movie. But I will say the Darth Vader, we did get. Chris Tuckman said he was in 4 minutes of the film. I thought it was a bit more than 4 minutes, but it's not that much. But the stuff he was in was awesome. It was awesome. It got lots of cheers, and I personally love it. So I was mentioning that the director of this film directed Godzilla, because Godzilla, the newest one, because that was criticized because you hardly see Godzilla, and then this one you hardly see Darth Vader. But I like Godzilla, and what I say is less is more. Because when Godzilla did appear, it was awesome. And I think the same is true with Darth Vader. If they would have put him in too much, it would have been like, oh, yeah, that's Darth Vader. It doesn't really have anything to do with the plot of the film. But they used him just enough. So less is more. And when you do see him, it's awesome. What else is in the chat? What do you mean by spoilers, Dan? I'm trying to avoid spoilers. I don't think that's a spoiler to say this. As I said, if you're hypersensitive to spoilers, then you're not going to want to watch this video. But I'm not giving away anything major. Anyway, let's see. Jerome says at least he was honest about what happened with the studio interference, unlike someone cough, David Elliott. I don't know that story. Not sure what film you're referring to, Jerome. Anyway, getting back to Rogue One, let's see. What am I talking about? Okay, so let's talk about the characters, because that's another thing I watched in a few reviews, is that the characters are kind of flat and uninteresting. But to be honest, like, that's kind of what I expected. Like, with a movie this short with so many characters, you can only explore so many of them. And this is we all had the same complaint about X-Men Apocalypse, which I think is unfair. When you have so many people, not everyone is going to have a rich backstory if you only have 2 hours to tell the story. The main characters, let me bring up their names here. Jyn Erso, I think, was the main chick. Let me find it. Yeah, she was good. She had a rich backstory, and a lot of people, even the critics, said that her story was done well. I think it was. The one thing I will say, though, is that from the trailers, I was expecting something different with her than what we got. Jerome says Suicide Squad. That's the movie he was referring to, where the director wasn't being honest. Oh, yes, absolutely. Totally agree with you there. Anyway, with Jyn Erso, like from the trailers, I thought she was going to be more of a Han Solo type, and she actually ends up being more of a Luke Skywalker type, if you know what I'm saying. She's more of a, like, it reminded me a lot of Rey, where I thought she was going to be a lot more sort of rebellious. You know, in the first trailer, like one of this teaser they released a long time ago, that had her say this line is like, "Oh, I'm a rebel. I rebel." She didn't. They cut that from the movie. It wasn't in the finished film, and that kind of irritated me. I was waiting to see that line, and just her whole, like, even in the start of the film, they try to. It's not just the trailer; it's the start of the film. They try to say, "Oh, she's this rebellious rogue. She's, loose, and she's a loose cannon." But you never actually see that. It's a lot of tell not show. They don't actually show her character be like that. She ends up being more of a, "Oh, there's still hope," sort of, a Luke Skywalker type, which, there's nothing wrong with that, but they built her character up to be one thing and it ended up to be another. So, yeah, that was a bit disappointing. And then there's, but the other characters, like, there's this other dude who's her, like, right hand man or second, whatever, the the one who's actually involved with the rebellion. I think is Captain. It says it's Captain Andor. That name sounds familiar. Maybe someone who's familiar with all the Star Wars lore. See, I just know the films. I don't know all the extended lore, and I don't know all the small details. Like everyone knows, like, this character appeared for 2 seconds. I know his whole backstory. Don't know. I'm not that familiar with the Star Wars films. But anyway, Captain Carson Andor, I think it says his name is. He was cool. Like, Chris Stuckman said, "Oh, this character wasn't developed at all." I think he was developed enough for the film. Sure, he didn't get his whole life story or his backstory, but he served the purpose he was meant to serve, and I got a real sense of his character from the film. And I knew as much about him as I needed to enjoy the film, so I thought he worked fine. And then there's the android, who was awesome. Everyone will say, like, everyone's saying that they love him. What was the android? K2? Is it K2SO? Or is that K250? I think it's K2SO. He was awesome. He was hilarious. He worked his comic relief. I mean, this is what happens when you kick George Lucas off. You actually get funny, good comic relief, because and this is the same with Force Awakens. That had a good comic relief. Although, I do think that Finn was a bit too over the top. Sometimes he annoyed me a bit. I mean, it's not George Lucas or Jar Jar Binks level of annoying, but like, even like Attack of the Clones, like C-3PO, was annoying. It's dumb. He just can't handle comic relief. But the K2SO, I think it was the best comic relief in a Star Wars movie ever. He worked perfectly. He wasn't too over the top. He wasn't too cheesy. His character, like, made sense, and it worked for the storyline. So yeah, that was awesome. That was a high point of the film. So I'll just address a few more things in that chat. How long are you staying awake for, Mark? Rogue One just started screening here today. Yeah, I went to the midnight showing, as I mentioned at the start of this video. I'm staying awake until I do this video, and then I'm going to sleep. Let's see. Jerome said, "How many of the trailers did you see before seeing Rogue One?" I've only seen the first one. 2, I think. Were there maybe 2? Were there 3? I don't know how many. I wasn't like one of these people who, like, over-examine the trailer and watch it a billion times and examine every single line and then make a review on it. I didn't. I just watched it once and, like, okay, it's a trailer. So, what Striker said, "Hey Mark, how was the dialogue? In the trailer, it seemed kind of prequel cheesy, but that may have been just the way it was edited." There were a few cheesy moments, but to be honest, the dialogue wasn't great for all of it, but there are some other scenes that worked. So it's not Attack of the Clones level of bad dialogue, cheesy dialogue, but it could have been better. I'll put it that way. But honestly, like, as I said in my Star Wars, like, when I was comparing the original trilogy to the prequels, is I think the dialogue in the original trilogy wasn't perfect either. I think a lot of people overlook it through nostalgia. They think, oh, like, I just watched the honest trailer for Empire Strikes Back, and you're like, perfect dialogue. I'm like, You take the fucking nostalgia glasses off. It is not perfect dialogue in Empire. I love Empire. Empire is one of my favorite movies of all time. But come on, some of that dialogue is just cheesy. Be honest. They're called honest trailers, but anyway. So yeah, it wasn't so cheesy in Rogue One that it interfered with my enjoyment of the film. But if we were gonna nitpick it, not the best. But as I said, the interactions with the android, Caddis 50, whatever, spot on. All of his dialogue was amazing. He was just so good. Let's see. What does Jerome say? I really hope Darth Vader's cameo is all about Sam. Well, I'm not going to spoil anything. All about Sam. I think what you're saying, how it's coarse and rough. Oh, I don't like sand. Thankfully not. Okay, so yes. Striker says I thought Screen Junkies was kidding. Maybe they were. I don't know. I think when I ever hear them talk about when they compare the original trilogy to the prequels, they overhype the original. And as I said, I love the originals, but some people got the nostalgic glasses on. Anyway, getting sidetracked. I didn't think this video would go on for so long, but it's good interacting with all of you anyway. But let me get through this. So, okay, other characters. Oh yeah, the two characters, like people were saying the android they loved, but the other one people were really talking about was Donnie Yen. They were saying he was the standout. He was okay. Like he had some really good parts. There were parts of the film where he was kind of cool and kind of badass. But here's the thing. Him and this other guy, hold on, let me just look up his name. Baze Mulbus. Yeah, so the two of them, the Donnie Yen character was, I can't even pronounce that. I'm not going to try. But anyway, the two of them just appear out of nowhere, and they're the ones who have very clunky introductions, because some of the reviews I watch are saying, oh, the first act is really bad. It's got clunky introduction. I disagree. I didn't think the first act was that bad. I thought it was fine. As I said, like, I didn't expect to get reach detailed backstories of all the side characters, but those two characters in particular weren't handled very well. They were just, here they are. And the fact that they kept sticking around, like, they didn't really, it felt like they were just there for the plot. So if I was going to criticize any characters for not being sort of well developed, it would be them. But they weren't bad. They weren't annoying. They were just there. It's like, here they are. And then, as I said, the Donnie Yen did have some badass moments. But yeah, Colonel says, I love it when you nitpick. Well, thank you. You're probably one of the few who do. Anyway, the important thing I wanted to say about this film is that the battles are amazing. Like, I think the plot is a bit too dependent on, as I said, The New Hope, and it doesn't stand on its own 2 feet as much as it could. But the battle scenes, I personally, I might just be still in awe out of, just coming back from it, but I would say the battle scenes are the best I've seen in any Star Wars movie. I mean, it felt like war. It felt very, I don't know. It was just really exciting. It was really tense, more so than, it had this gritty feel. I think that's the best way to describe it. Like, the whole way it was shot was amazing, especially if you compare it to something like Phantom Menace, where oh my God, Phantom Menace sucks. I hate people saying that the Phantom Menace looks good. It's not. Pod racing sucks. It sucks. It sucks. Anyway, if you compare the battle scenes in this film, oh my God, the Phantom Menace, Phantom Menace is cartoonish. It was cartoonish, whereas these battle scenes felt like a real war. It felt like a tense, gritty battle, and that's something I think that we haven't really seen in any Star Wars film as much. And well, I mean, some. I mean, you get Empire, Return of the Jedi, even Force Awakens does have some pretty tense fighting scenes, but not as tense as this. Personally, I think this is the most gritty. It was the most like sort of hit home that they're actually fighting a war, and they're not just the good guys, heroes fighting the evil scourge. It was showing like shades of gray within some of the rebellion characters, and I love that. I thought that was great. So I was totally impressed. Like at the end of the film, when the credits rolled, everyone in the theater, of course, as I said, it was a huge theater. It was completely sold out very quickly too. Anyway, everyone cheered when the credits rolled, and I was just cheering. I got up and cheered. It was the one that the ending just made me want to get up and cheer because it was so exciting and it was so well done. Colonel Doomsday says, please don't. There's no comparison, man. What are you talking about? And DeBurn says, I got so much out of his character when he stared at the camera for 15 seconds. Oh, you guys talking about something else. I lost you. Talking about Aquaman, Batman v Superman. Anyway, so where am I at? Okay. So, and I was going to say, like, the people who were complaining about Darth Vader not being in the film enough, like I said, I expected that. But the Forrest Whitaker, again, if you're spoiler sensitive, but come on, this is not ruining anything for you. But Forrest Whitaker's character, he's the one that I was so proud of. I was expecting him to be. I knew he wasn't the main character, but I thought he'd be in the film more than he was. He was barely in it. So yeah, I'd actually say don't expect too much of him either. That actually surprised me. But yeah, so what was the last thing I was gonna say? Okay, so this is a tad slightly spoilery. Again, it's not too bad, but if you're really sensitive, you might want to skip this part. But I was gonna mention the ending. Nothing specific, but I will say it reminded me a bit too much of Revenge of the Sith ending in that it had to put the dominoes in place to set up A New Hope. It didn't seem as contrived as Revenge of the Sith. They did it better, but the thing is because of the plot, as I talked about, is so dependent on what happens in A New Hope, is when the film ends, like, it felt like a good end for all the characters, the original characters in the film, but for the plot that was about the Death Star, it doesn't feel like an ending. It feels like a lot of people are saying, I want to go and watch A New Hope, because you kind of need to, because the plot isn't complete until A New Hope. And I didn't like that aspect of it. I didn't like that it was, that they were banking it so much on what happened in the original Star Wars film. Come on, do something. I mean, you can have it related to what we see in the original trilogy, but the plot in particular is too heavily, and the ending was kind of not as bad as Revenge of the Sith, but it was a bit too telegraphed, and this is what happens and right before New Hope, and I didn't really need to see that. Okay, so just read what's in the chat, and then I'll give my rating and I'll go. Cardinal says, I love your enthusiasm. Phantom Menace is what I was talking about. Okay. Yeah, Phantom Menace. Fuck that movie. Yeah, Jar Jar stinks. And I've heard a rumor a while back that the movie was going to end like 10 minutes before the start of A New Hope. Well, I will... Should I confirm or deny? I think I'll just put it this way. You can probably tell by what I was saying what the answer to that is. Okay, so let me, it's yes. Anyway, so let me give my rating for the film. Out of 10, it's going to be an 8, extremely good. I was thinking about 9 maybe, but I think it's held back a bit by the fact that it's too heavily dependent on A New Hope. The plot is anyway, and the characters. Like, again, I didn't have a huge issue with them as a lot of people did, but they weren't as rich as I would have preferred. And those two guys in particular seemed like they're just to be there. The android was fine. The other guy, Captain Andor, whatever, he was fine. And the android was awesome. He wasn't just fine. The android was great. And they had this other pilot defector guy. He was great too. He was played by the guy who was in Nightcrawler, and he was in the HBO show called Night Of, which I'd never seen, but apparently he was in that. He was good in this film. But the main character, as I said, I think they did a lot of tell not show with her. She didn't really act the way I thought. Maybe that has more to do with my expectations. I don't know. But great battle scenes, really engaging film. As I said, I wanted to get up and cheer after watching it, maybe because I'm a Star Wars fan. But I do think that if you haven't seen any Star Wars movie and you go watch this film, I'm sure you can enjoy it, but I think those who love Star Wars will enjoy it more because they know what happens in A New Hope and they know all the Easter eggs. I didn't mention there's a lot of great Easter eggs, which I won't spoil, which were fun. It's like, look. That's an added bonus for Star Wars fans. Those who haven't seen Star Wars won't even notice. It won't bother them. But this plot about the Death Star plans, that is a bit too dependent on the Star Wars. So I think that's what will bother newbies who never heard of Star Wars. And they'll be like, well, what happens? What's the deal? They'll be a bit lost in that. I mean, not so lost where they won't be able to understand the plot and enjoy the movie. Sure, they still would, but just not as much as someone who is familiar with Star Wars and loves Star Wars. So I do think it is a bit more for the fans than for the non-fans, which is a bit of a shame. Don Willie, happy Easter egg. Yes, indeed. Jerome asked, how'd you like the main villain guy? He was fine. I mean, he was fine. Like, he served his purpose, but he wasn't a good villain. He wasn't like, oh my God, that guy's awesome. But he wasn't a bad villain either. He wasn't like, didn't make me think of Nero from Star Trek 2009. What a shitty villain. Didn't think anything like that about him. I mean, he served his purpose. Like, he wasn't a standout, but he didn't totally suck. Put it that way. Okay, so Striker, how connected to the prequels is it, if at all? It's consistent with the prequels, I will say that. There is one particular Easter egg that connects Revenge of the Sith to A New Hope a bit, I think so. But I was about to say, but I'm not going to tell it all. No spoilers. I'm not going to get into it. But yeah, it is connected. It's not it doesn't always bring them up. It just had that one little Easter egg. But it's not inconsistent with anything established in the prequels either. So, yeah. Okay. Well, it was good engaging with you, good talking with you. It's now 4 a.m. So I think I better get some sleep. Although I work evenings, so I don't have to worry about getting up early or anything. I can sleep in as long as I like. But still, I want to get some sleep. So thank you all for watching. What was this saying? Don says the power we have is irreversible. I'm not sure what that's a reference to. Anyway, thanks for checking out my video, Cardinal Don Willie. Good to see you, Striker. Host Jerome, all of you, everyone in chat, everyone who's watching us after the fact. Thanks for supporting the character. Well, it's 4:10 a.m. here, not 4:30. I'm not sure. Maybe my clock's wrong, but it says 4:10. Anyway, gotta go. Gotta get some sleep. Thanks for watching this video. And as I say, I'll see if I can do a spoiler video if I have time. I can't guarantee I will have time because I have a lot of videos I want to do. Depends on how quickly I can get through them. But if I have time, I'll try to squeeze in. Might be a few weeks before I can get to it. But anyway, thanks for watching, and let me know what you think about the movie once you've seen it in the comments below. And we'll see you next time.